And Rita and I became very dear friends, very close friends. I adored Gilda, and I adored Rita. And so what you see on the screen is true, you see, and we were very close.
By the time Glenn Ford looked back on his remarkable life, he had become one of Hollywood's most beloved leading men. Audiences remembered his quiet charm, his unforgettable films, and the effortless way he shared the screen with some of the world's most beautiful women. Yet behind that gentle smile was a man whose heart never seemed to find lasting peace. He married 4 times, was linked to countless famous actresses, and spent decades searching for something that always felt just beyond his reach. Then, as the years grew shorter and the spotlight faded, one name kept returning to his memories. It wasn't simply the woman he loved. It was the one he could never truly let go. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of Glenn Ford's life. After all the romance, why did only one woman remain? The woman who first stole his heart. Before Glenn Ford became one of Hollywood's most admired leading men, he was simply a young actor, hoping to build a future that would last longer than his next audition. Success had not yet arrived, but love seemed to have found him first. In 1943, Glenn married the remarkable Eleanor Powell, MGM's dazzling queen of tap dancing. To many in Hollywood, they appeared to be the perfect couple. Eleanor was graceful, admired, and deeply devoted to her family. Glenn was handsome, ambitious, and beginning to attract attention from every major studio. When they welcomed their son, Peter, it seemed they had everything a young family could hope for. For a brief moment, life felt wonderfully ordinary. But Hollywood has always had a way of testing even the strongest promises. As Glenn's career flourished after the war, directors discovered a leading man audiences instantly trusted. He wasn't loud or flashy. There was a quiet sincerity in his performances that made him different from many of the era's bigger personalities. That same quiet charm also drew people to him away from the cameras. The invitations became more frequent. The premieres grew larger. So did the temptations. Then came a film that would quietly change the course of his personal life forever. In 1945, Glenn was cast opposite Rita Hayworth in Gilda. She was already one of the world's most glamorous women, admired by millions, and photographed everywhere she went. Together, they created a chemistry that audiences could feel long before the cameras stopped rolling. No one on the set could have imagined that this would become far more than another successful picture. Whether it began with lingering conversations between takes, or with a simple glance that lasted a little too long, something extraordinary seemed to awaken between them. Neither of them knew it then, but their lives were beginning to intertwine in ways that neither marriage, distance, nor passing years would ever completely undo. For Glenn Ford, the story of his greatest love had already begun, long before he realized it himself. But before one woman could claim his heart, Hollywood introduced him to many others. The women who shared his Hollywood years. By the late 1940s, Glenn Ford had become one of Hollywood's most dependable leading men. He possessed a rare quality that audiences admired. He didn't need grand speeches or dramatic gestures to command the screen. His quiet confidence made him believable, and his kindness made him unforgettable. That same charm followed him wherever he went. As one successful film followed another, Glenn found himself surrounded by some of the most admired women of Hollywood's golden age. Many were his co-stars. Others became close friends. A few became something far more personal. There was the elegant Jean Tierney, whose beauty was often described as almost unreal. Glenn admired her intelligence and quiet grace, and for a time they enjoyed a warm friendship that, according to later accounts, became more personal than either publicly admitted. Then came Barbara Stanwyck. Strong, independent, and respected throughout the industry, she shared Glenn's professionalism and love of acting. They understood each other in ways few outsiders could. Their bond never became a lasting romance, but it added another chapter to the growing legend surrounding Glenn Ford's private life. Joan Crawford was another woman whose name became linked with his. Bold, glamorous, and never afraid to pursue what she wanted, she represented the confidence of classic Hollywood itself. Whether the relationship was brief or simply exaggerated by studio gossip, it added to Glenn's growing reputation as one of the industry's most desired leading men. There were others as well. Gloria Graham, with her unforgettable screen presence, Loretta Young, admired for her elegance and faith, Rhonda Fleming, whose striking beauty earned her the nickname the Queen of Technicolor. Each brought something different into Glenn's life, even if only for a season. To the public, it looked like the dream every young actor imagined. Fame, success, admiration, beautiful women seemed to appear wherever Glenn Ford went. Yet appearances can be deceiving. For all the attention he received, none of these relationships gave him the quiet certainty he seemed to be searching for. The loves that could never last. If Hollywood had taught Glenn Ford anything by the early 1960s, it was that fame could open every door except the one that led to lasting happiness. His marriage to Eleanor Powell had ended, leaving behind painful memories and a son he loved deeply. Professionally, he was still one of America's most dependable stars. Personally, however, his life seemed to drift from one relationship to the next, each one carrying the hope of a new beginning and the disappointment of another goodbye. One of the women most often linked to Glenn during this period was Judy Garland. By then, Judy's extraordinary talent was matched only by the struggles she quietly carried behind her famous smile. Friends recalled that Glenn treated her with warmth and kindness, offering moments of calm during a difficult chapter of her life. Their romance lasted only a few months, but those close to them believed Judy hoped it might become something more. Glenn, however, was never able to take that final step. Once again, a promising love quietly slipped away. Then there was Hope Lang. Unlike many of the brief romances that filled newspaper columns, Hope became one of the most important women in Glenn's life after his divorce. Their relationship lasted several years, making it one of the longest and most serious of his adult life. They shared ordinary moments away from Hollywood's cameras, and for a while it seemed Glenn had finally found the stability that had eluded him for so long. Yet even that love could not survive. The reasons were never fully explained. Some believed Glenn valued his independence too much. Others felt that the demands of Hollywood and his restless nature made lasting commitment almost impossible. Whatever the truth, another relationship ended with more questions than answers. Around the same era, Glenn's name was also connected with some of Hollywood's most recognizable women. Marilyn Monroe's name appeared in later accounts of his private life, though the relationship was said to have been brief. Debbie Reynolds, admired for her warmth and optimism, was also among the actresses linked to him. Eva Gabor, known for her elegance and sparkling personality, became another chapter in the growing list of romances that surrounded Glenn Ford. To the outside world, it looked like an enviable life. Handsome, leading man, beautiful companions, endless admiration. But those who knew Glenn best saw something different. Every relationship seemed to begin with genuine hope, yet none could quiet the feeling that something was still missing. It was as though he measured every new love against a memory he never spoke about, a memory that lingered just beyond reach. And while the public celebrated his charm, Hollywood itself was beginning to whisper about another side of Glenn Ford. One hidden behind closed doors, where private affairs, carefully guarded secrets, and a lifetime of untold stories waited to be discovered. The affairs Hollywood never forgot. By the time Glenn Ford reached the height of his career, Hollywood had stopped asking whether he was in love. The question had become who. Every new film seemed to bring another rumor, another whispered romance, another photograph that sent gossip columnists rushing to meet their deadlines. In an era when the studios worked tirelessly to protect their stars' public images, Glenn somehow managed to remain both admired and mysterious. Some relationships lasted only weeks. Others were never publicly acknowledged at all. His name was linked to actresses including Maria Schell, whose quiet elegance captivated audiences across Europe and America. There were also reports of romances with Connie Stevens and Suzanne Plachette, two talented performers whose careers flourished during Hollywood's changing generations. Glamorous names such as Brigitte Bardot and Linda Christian were also connected to Glenn in later biographies, while stories involving Vicki Dugan and several other actresses continued to circulate long after the cameras stopped rolling. Whether every rumor was true is impossible to know today. Years after his death, his son Peter Ford revealed another surprising detail about his father's private life. According to Peter, Glenn kept detailed diaries and even recorded thousands of telephone conversations over several decades. The tapes reportedly included discussions with famous actors, political figures, close friends, and women who had played important roles in his life. The revelation stunned many longtime fans. Why would one of Hollywood's biggest stars preserve so much of his private world? Some believed he simply wanted to remember every chapter of an extraordinary life. Others wondered whether he feared those memories might one day disappear if he didn't preserve them himself. The love he spent a lifetime searching for. Time has a quiet way of changing what matters most. The excitement of movie premieres fades. The applause grows distant. Even the brightest stars eventually discover that memories become more valuable than trophies. For Glenn Ford, those years arrived sooner than he expected. After the end of his marriage to Eleanor Powell, he tried to begin again. He married actress Katherine Hayes in 1966, hoping perhaps that life was offering him a second chance. But the marriage lasted only a few years before ending in divorce. Years later, Glenn married Cynthia Hayward. Once again, there was optimism. Once again, there was hope. Yet despite their efforts, the relationship slowly unraveled, ending after several years together. His fourth and final marriage, to Jeanne Bos, proved even shorter. Within months, it too had come to an end. 4 marriages, countless romances, more admiration than most men could imagine. And still, lasting peace remained just beyond his reach. The one woman he never truly let go. In the end, the answer was not found in the headlines. It wasn't hidden among the countless photographs, the gossip columns, or the long list of women whose names had become part of Glenn Ford's legend. It was found in a story that had quietly begun nearly 40 years earlier. Her name was Rita Hayworth. When Glenn and Rita first appeared together in Gilda, audiences saw unforgettable chemistry. The film became a Hollywood classic, and together they created one of the screen's most memorable pairings. But what the public witnessed on the silver screen was only the beginning of a connection that, according to those closest to them, never truly disappeared. Life pulled them in different directions. Rita faced highly publicized marriages, enormous fame, and deeply personal struggles. Glenn built an extraordinary career of his own, becoming one of Hollywood's most reliable leading men. They each tried to move forward. They loved other people. They built separate lives. Yet somehow, they kept finding their way back into each other's world. Friends recalled that their bond never seemed to vanish completely. Years after Gilda, they remained close. Glenn even purchased a home near Rita's in Beverly Hills, allowing the two to remain neighbors during a later chapter of their lives. They no longer needed movie sets or studio lights to bring them together. A quiet visit, a familiar conversation, or simply knowing the other was nearby seemed enough. According to Peter Ford's biography of his father, Glenn spoke of Rita with a tenderness unlike anyone else. Peter also described their relationship as one that continued, on and off, for decades, an extraordinary claim that has shaped how many fans now view Glenn's private life. Whether every detail can be verified may never be known. But perhaps the larger truth doesn't depend on every missing piece. When Glenn's life is viewed as a whole, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. He married 4 times. He was linked to some of the most admired women of the 20th century. He experienced more romance than most people could imagine. And still, whenever the story circles back to the woman who seemed to understand him best, it always arrives at the same name: Rita Hayworth. Maybe that is why their story continues to touch people all these years later. It reminds us that life doesn't always reward us with perfect endings. Sometimes the greatest love is not the one we marry. Sometimes it is the one that quietly walks beside us through memory, refusing to fade no matter how many years pass. Glenn Ford's story reminds us that a lifetime can be filled with success, admiration, and unforgettable moments, yet the heart often remembers just one person above all others. Whether every chapter of his private life will ever be fully known, one thing seems certain: some loves never truly end. They simply become part of who we are. If Glenn Ford's journey brought back memories of Hollywood's golden age, we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe Rita Hayworth was truly the love of his life? Or was there another woman who understood him better? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy timeless stories about the legends who shaped Hollywood, please subscribe to Legendary Archives and join us for another unforgettable journey into the lives behind the silver screen.